Who is the real rich man, the one with billions in his account, or the one who knows the worth of every soul? That's what Jeremiah Stone asked, standing outside the iron and glass walls of Capitol Gate Bank, his weathered briefcase at his side and the fire of quiet dignity in his eyes. What happened inside that bank on a Tuesday afternoon shook the foundation of more than one man's pride, and left a lesson the city would never forget. Let me take you back. Jeremiah was 62, with skin the color of polished mahogany, a salt and pepper beard that curled at the chin, and a voice like a steady drumbeat. He wore a clean but faded gray suit, scuffed shoes, and the kind of patience you only earn through years of being underestimated. He had no car. He walked, with a slight limp, the kind that told you life hadn't been gentle. At precisely 10:17 a.m., he walked into Capitol Gate Bank, one of the most prestigious financial institutions in the city. The marble floors gleamed, the air smelled of pine-scented polish and quiet arrogance, and people barely lifted their eyes from their screens as he stepped in. He stood in line, patient, smiling softly. When he reached the teller, a young woman with glossy red nails and disinterested eyes, he placed his ID and documents on the counter. "I'd like to speak to the branch manager, please," he said, his voice low but firm. "What's the reason for your visit, sir?" she asked, not hiding her boredom. "I'm here to verify a trust fund transfer," he replied. "It's important." She looked at the name on the ID, Jeremiah Stone, and her brows lifted slightly before she pressed a button under her desk. Not 5 seconds later, the branch manager approached, a tall, thin man with slicked-back blonde hair, a tailored suit, and the air of someone used to deciding who was worth his time. His name was Charles Merriman. "Yes?" Charles asked briskly, not offering a handshake. "Can I help you?" Jeremiah gestured toward the documents. "I was advised to come here personally. I'm the sole trustee of the Margaret E. Stone Legacy Fund. It should be processed through your institution." Merriman barely glanced at the documents. His eyes took in Jeremiah's shoes, his suit, his age, and, let's be honest, his skin. "This account requires a minimum threshold for personal appointments, Mr. Stone," Merriman said, voice dripping with condescension. "We can't have everyone walking in off the street claiming to own legacy funds." Jeremiah didn't flinch. He merely said, "I understand. But you might want to look a little closer." "Sir, I don't need to waste more time on this," Merriman said, raising his voice just enough to draw attention from nearby customers. "Please step aside so others can be served. Or security will escort you out." There was a silence. A painful, burning silence. People looked. Eyes rolled. Someone snickered. A guard actually began walking toward Jeremiah. And then... "Wait," the teller said, her voice suddenly tight. She was staring at the computer screen, where she had typed in the routing code from the trust document. Her red nails trembled slightly as she read the figures that appeared. The trust account listed under Jeremiah Stone's name was worth $1.7 billion. Not million. Billion. The teller stood up so fast her chair nearly toppled. The guard froze mid-step. Merriman's face turned a shade of white that made the marble look tan. "Mr. Stone," the teller said, her voice now almost reverent. "Would you like something to drink while we prepare the conference room?" Charles Merriman tried to recover. "Mr. Stone, apologies. If I had known." Jeremiah held up a hand. "Calm. Steady. You saw everything you needed to," he said softly. "You looked at me and made up your mind. That tells me everything about this bank's character. And yours." He paused. "And the Margaret E. Stone Legacy Fund? That was my mother. A housekeeper. She cleaned houses until her bones gave out. She left this money not for herself, but for kids who look like me. For communities you'd never walk through. For single mothers, and veterans, and broken schools." He turned to leave. But, what about the account? Merriman stammered. Jeremiah looked back, briefcase in hand. I'm transferring the entire fund. Effective immediately. Another bank will handle the distribution. One that doesn't judge a man's worth by his clothes. And he walked out. The news broke within hours. Video footage leaked. By morning, it was viral. The headline read, "Bank manager humiliates black man at counter, his $1.7 billion trust empties the bank." But it was more than just a headline. It was a reckoning. Charles Merriman was quietly removed weeks later. Capital Gate Bank issued a public apology, but the damage was done. Jeremiah? He kept walking. Kept giving. The Legacy Fund now builds libraries, funds scholarships, supports black-owned startups, and restores forgotten neighborhoods. And the people? They remembered. They remembered the man who stood with quiet grace. Who turned humiliation into legacy. Who taught the world that the truest wealth is not what sits in a bank account, but what lives in your soul. And if you're watching this now, wondering what you would have done in that bank, ask yourself, when you see someone walk in with nothing but dignity and a dream, do you open the door, or do you turn them away? Let Jeremiah's story remind us all, never judge a book by its cover, or a man by his shoes. Because some of the richest hearts wear the simplest suits.